what's up with the kiddie pool. Please don't give them the time of day. People right here won't give you no time of day. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here want you to accommodate. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here won't give you no time of day. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here want you to accommodate. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here won't give you no time of day. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here want you to accommodate. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here won't give you no time of day. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here want you to accommodate. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here won't give you no time of day. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here want you to accommodate. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here won't give you no time of day. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here want you to accommodate. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here won't give you no time of day. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here want you to accommodate. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here won't give you no time of day. Nah, they won't give you no time of day. People right here want you to accommodate. Nah.
You are now tuned in to DameSmiff.
Yeah, empower women, stay lit just like a fucking candle. Your boyfriend had the chance, but his issues just weren't financial. I like to spit when pussy's at the right angle. She like my grip, she the ball, and I got handles. Cash salad for lunch, dinero for dinner. Y'all been on a diet, that's how your bitch got thinner. These niggas recognize, these niggas get the picture. Lick that pussy, mesmerized, I keep that kitty litter. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Where's my savior? Is this okay with ya? Just let her say what's up. Niggas can't hate enough. Where's my savior? Is this okay with ya? Just let her say what's up. Niggas can't hate enough. I don't really know what she trying to get from me. Nope, I don't think I wanna know the way she feeling me. Is it the shine? Is it the glow? Is it my dignity? The way I think this about to go, might have to wait and see. Check me head to toe, still you ain't seeing me. We smelt your Reggie at the door, you smoke like weed is free. Leave them thirsty hoes alone, you know they come with fees. PG girls, don't come with UPCs. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Yeah, I ain't looking for no trouble, dog. I just came to burst your bubble, dog. You put me in the field, I give you way more than a huddle, dog. Respect don't come with no numbers, dog. I spit lightning over thunder, nah. I'm the light during the summer, nah. You disrespect and I'm bugging, dog. The DMV got it covered, dog.
bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, whoa. Bounce it, baby, bounce it, baby, bounce it.
Let's get it. What's going on, y'all? It's your boy DameSmiff, and I'm out here to have another conversation with you guys about the music industry. And so we're gonna have another new week, another new set of challenges, and another new set of accomplishments. And part of what we're gonna do this week is we're gonna just keep building upon what we've been doing, right? And the goal here at this channel is to clearly give you guys a lot of information on how to be better musicians, but also to bridge the gap between what a musician is, what an investor is, and what the fans are, because it allows us to have better conversations when we're trying to create, and we're also trying to, I guess you can say, understand and analyze the music industry, right? And so if you guys like conversations like this, make sure you hit the like button, because that lets other people know this video is dope. And then also make sure you're hitting the subscribe button so you can catch my latest videos. So because it's Monday, we might as well run down the week's show card and then let you guys understand what to expect coming in, so you guys that are subscribed can, expect a great morning every morning this week. So this week we're working on today's topic, which is social cues and reading the room, or reading rooms in general. Cultural shifts in global markets will be the topic for Tuesday. And then for Wednesday, we will talk about gendered dynamics in creative rooms. So how men and women typically work together, right? And that's going to be key to understand, because many of us kind of have expectations. And, it might not fit in when you walk into like a scene or like a venue and stuff like that. So we're going to see how that works for most people in general. Thursday, we're going to look at network leveraging and business capital, and basically converting industry contacts into bankable liquidity, like credit lines, and how to grow your assets and stuff like that. And so there are ways you can look at your manager or maybe your fans a lot differently when it comes to thinking about investing. So we'll have that conversation on Thursday, and then for Friday we will wrap it up with synthesizing kind of like the takeaways from the week, and then we'll look back on some of the greater topics that are really covering the music industry, and then we'll see how we understand it with our limited understanding, or our limited perspective rather. Because sometimes, even myself, I have like the musician's artist perspective, which may not be as vast or as intensively thorough as, let's say, like a super businessman who's not as musically inclined. So we could bridge the gap there. And so that's the goal of the channel. That's the goal of this week. And like I said, make sure you like and subscribe so we can keep up with these things in real time. But next, we're going to now dive into our first clip very quickly, because like I said, it's all about business, right? And essentially, this is all about how independent artists are winning in 2026, right? And the way you do it a lot of times, when I would say, looking back on things, we used to think it was like the most music or the most hits or the most sales and stuff like that, right? But we quickly learned over time, just through application, that it was really about who you know, but it was like how they knew you too. Like if some people that you knew were very powerful, but they hated you, that was not going to help your career, right? But if they're really powerful and they liked you, then that was a different thing. So it added like layers to a lot of the things most entrepreneurs understand, right? And so when we tie it to music, it usually gets mixed up between like, I'm a really good musician to I'm a really good person. Like there's a mix up between those two things, right? And so being a good person comes with a lot more nuance and context and like experiences and like cultural differences and things like that. Whereas being a musician is kind of like world renowned. Like you can transcend wealth levels and cultures and things like that if you're really good at your instrument or your musical skill. But when people get in the room with you to like record a song, or like they want to have a conversation about business, or they want to have a conversation outside of music, how does that affect how they view you and how they interact with you, let's say going forward, or even creatively, right? So that's why this week is going to be interesting, because we can see all those different nuances and see how our own perspectives would actually challenge us when it comes to the music industry. So we'll get into our first clip here, see how new artists do.
Welcome back to my Raw Vlog series where I talk about some industry concepts that more people need to get hip about, but there's just not enough time in the day to make super highly edited content for it. So my life has been super busy recently. I am working on some projects that I don't want to talk too much about yet because there's this whole theory. I'm not going to get into it too much, but there's this whole theory where if you talk about something too much and you're excited about it and you talk about it and you talk about it, every time you talk about it before you actually do whatever it is you say you're going to do, it releases dopamine about it. And it's weird. Like, as you release more of this dopamine about it, you get less excited because there's less dopamine. So I've been definitely on the way of trying to talk.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I feel the complete opposite about that. I don't know where he learned that from. But what I was raised with was like you gotta like constantly immerse yourself in something you're passionate about. So like you'll always hear me talking about things that I care about for that reason. But I think for him, the dopamine rush feeling less and less the more you talk about it is probably because there's no actual production happening. Like I've had that experience where like you'll be working on a song and you'll think it's good, and then over time, because you're not really planning a thing to do with this or planning some kind of campaign for it to go under, it kind of is a good thing that just sits there. And, you know, it's kind of like a favorite t-shirt now. It's not a useful thing. It's not really driving or changing or shaking up your life or anything. So I think that's the real difference in what he's saying compared to what I believe.
Talk about what I'm working on a lot less, even though a lot of the shit that I'm working on is super cool and I'm super excited about it. Can't talk about all of it. But that being said, my life has been crazy busy lately. We're about to go to the next retreat. I host retreats through Underground Retreats. Basically, we get a bunch of people together in a mansion. They make music and content the whole week, and it's super sick. It's an amazing community, and I can't wait to be back. It's going to be 8 days plus a pre-party, so it's going to be like 10 days away from home. And then directly after, one of the artists that I'm working with, 10%, and I are going to be going to Atlanta with his team because he's doing a press run for his new release, and I'm going to be vlogging it, and it's going to be super sick, but oh my god, I'm busy. So that being said, one of my thoughts recently has been, about how networking has evolved. It's one of those things that changes up a lot. A lot of people like to talk about it. A lot of people like to say, hey, you should network more, you should meet more people. But in reality, that's kind of the same thing as telling an artist like, hey, you should make more videos. It's like, cool, but what am I making videos on? How am I actually networking? So today I want to talk about some of my insights, just my 2 cents on the topic, and how I've kind of utilized my network to get to where I am as a creative. And to be honest, I love where I'm at as a creative. Like, I may not be like, number one on social media or number one producer in the world, but like, I'm living this life every single day.
And a lot of what people are going to miss when they talk about networking is saying no, right? When you're in certain like sales situations or rooms and stuff like that, you'll be dealing with people who have a lot of things to offer, and most of it won't be useful because it's really offered to benefit themselves, right? And so now you have to look at certain people that you may think are cool or you may think look awesome or have a lot of accolades, and then you have to think, well, if I work with them, how does this relationship work, right? And if you don't consider that, right, you wouldn't be truly networking. You would essentially be looking for relationships, like just friends, right? But networking should feel like just getting relationships. So this is probably what he's going to talk about in the sense of you can meet a bunch of people, you can show everybody your song and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you want it to be intentional and have some kind of value to it.
It's 2:42 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I'm just here talking to a camera. Like, this is a cool fucking life. And really, networking is the number one way that I got there. Networking is the most important piece to my entire career. Like, literally nothing that I do would have happened without networking. So, what is networking? It's in its most simple terms, meeting people. It's connecting with people, adding value. It's getting value. It's this whole weird game of psychology and human relationships. If you get it right, it can take you very far. And if you get it wrong, it can really set you back. Like, seriously set you back. And I've been in a position where I've been set back from networking the wrong way thinking about it wrong, approaching it wrong, and I want to take those lessons that I've learned and give them to you today. So with all of that being said, the most important thing that you want to focus on with networking is adding value. If you only had one takeaway from this entire video, is to add value in any room that you get in. So what I mean by that is, like, don't go hitting up people asking for things. That's what a lot of people think networking is. They think it's like, if I hit up this manager and I show them my song, they're gonna see it and they're gonna be like, oh, we could blow up together. Like, it's not like that. You have to be in a position to add value first. I've hit up so many managers when I first started producing. I'm like, bro, I got beats for your artist. I got this for you. I got this for you. And those connections never ended up working out because I'm going into it trying to take. I'm trying to take opportunities. I'm trying to make some money off of them. I'm trying to, send them stuff that's going to better my career. But what I never asked myself is what I could do for them. Because a lot of times they have things that they need. I mean, everybody needs something, right? So you have to think about, when you want to connect with somebody, are you in a position to add value to their life? Are you going to make something easier for them? And no, just sending the beats so they have more beats to send their artists is not adding value. That is them giving you an opportunity, because I guarantee there's a million other producers that want to send the beats. I guarantee you, if it's somebody that needs songs, like, there's 1,000 other artists who could send them songs. That's not where your value is. The value is what you can do either in their day-to-day life. If there's, something actual that you can give them, like tangible, like money, not always the best bet, by the way. But yeah, I mean, there's so many things that you can use to add value.
And a lot of times, this is the part that is a struggle for musicians and people in general, but we're talking about musicians, because you have to now change how you think again. Similar to what I was saying last week, where it's difficult for people to kind of deal with, let's say, making certain financial decisions because it affects how their lifestyle is going to feel, look, or, be designed. Well, the same goes with networking. Now, you don't really need to be around people you enjoy. You need to be around people that are beneficial and that you can be beneficial to. So your homeboy who wants to be in the studio all day just rolling up weed, should he be there? The girl who wants to just kind of like tug around your arm all the day when you're on stage, should she be there, right? And the issue is that it's not that anybody's right or wrong, good or bad. It's that you now can shift the value that you have towards people. So if you want to be the person who's in the studio rolling weed all day, well, why don't you learn something that applies to the actual business, so that way you being there makes sense? If you want to be the girl that's on stage clingy all the time, then why don't you find something of value that justifies you being there so it makes sense, right? And doing that, though, means you have to now think differently, you have to move differently, and a lot of people really hate this because it means that you can no longer be comfortable doing what's easy and sometimes doing things on your own terms. Because if you have some kind of expectation for somebody to, let's say, listen to your beat, but then put you on and then make a song or something like that, it goes the same way in terms of how they expect you to be reliable, have some kind of etiquette, and then also be of benefit to them as well in terms of business. But this transcends, honestly, music and all that other stuff, because you'll see people who are honestly hanging around people because they, pay good money, pay good salary, like their bosses or managers or something like that. Or maybe they have the better network. And so being around them who have access to a better network, you can kind of leech off of it as well. So, like I said, thinking this way, you can do that all day. Like, a lot of you are going to hear what I'm saying and be like, yeah, this is, yup, you're right. It makes sense. Yup. But when you actually apply it, you'll see a lot of times why so many people work alone. Why you see so many people saying it's hard to find good work. It's because so many people want to be around and then say good job and then get the end results. But the actual benefit you would be to somebody in terms of, true networking and being part of their business and what they're investing in takes actual effort. And it takes actual thought and intention, right? It has to go beyond what you're willing to give sometimes, but that even before you get there, it takes you to be intentional about being valuable to someone else first.
And it really just comes down to your unique skill set. So maybe you're really good at graphic design. Maybe you're really good at videography and photography, and you can offer free services to their artists. Or, if you're hitting up an artist directly, maybe you offer your services to them.
And so even like something what he just suggests, most people would have these skills. They'll have all this graphic design or AI prompting and video editing and stuff like that. But again, it wouldn't really be of value to somebody if you're offering that service at a premium that they can't afford. Like if they can afford it and you have quality work, then that's just business, right? But if you're trying to actually develop a relationship, then you have to bring like literally provide the benefit, right? And so if providing the benefit is just an offer, then most people would turn it down. Reasonably, they would turn it down because they don't need the offer, right? They need the actual solution to their problems, right? So some people right now, you could look like even him right now, he could probably do really well with some production help, right? So if you hit him up and you're like, man, I know graphic design or I can do editing, you could hit him up. But then what he's going to ask for in return is a standard. He might say, well, I have, let's say, 10 videos I'm putting out a week. That means you have to provide work for 10 videos a week and then also maintain the relationship. So this is not a one-time thing. This is not a because I need some help thing. This is because you actually care about what he's putting on, right? And so the same goes with your favorite musicians. Like if they have like a YouTube channel or they're working on stuff like that, and some people they'll offer to be like mods of their streams and stuff like fans will be mods of like streams and stuff like that. But this is ways you can develop a relationship and build networks with people that coincide with maybe your brand, depending on what you do. But like I said, this is really, really difficult for people who have it in their head, their own independent agenda that does not coincide with the people they're networking with. So if you think you're going to just network with somebody because you have the skill, that could happen, but you're not really going to be invested in the relationship like you would somebody who's actually truly trying to promote their network or actually utilize their network. And that's what he meant by you can go really, really well using your network or really, really bad using your network.
Point is you have to go into their life and make something easier for them. If you're not making their life easier, if you're making it complicated and you're trying to ask for a bunch of shit, like they're just not going to respond to you. They're not going to give a shit about what you've got to say. And I know your goal with networking is to get these opportunities and they will come, trust me. But you can't think about what you're going to get first. So the main thing you need to know is that. But let's assume you already know that, you have found people that you're good at adding value to. You found ways that you can help them out. So how do you actually go and find people that are worth networking with? Think of it all as like a big tier system, right? You've got different levels of creatives. You've got people who are higher up in the industry. You've got people who have more success than you. And then you've got people that don't have as much success as you. And maybe they have less followers. Maybe they have less stuff going for them. And it's all a balance of figuring out where you fit in best, because you don't just start off at the top. I'm not just going to message Drake. He should be like, oh yeah, like you could do a free video for me. Awesome. Like, let me lock you in. Again, there's a million other people who could do that for him that would be, honored to have the opportunity. But you need to have an actual reason as to why you're a good fit, why the value that you're adding is actually worth their time, and if it even is value to begin with. So
how do you know you're a good fit? Like if you're a person that, let's say you do DM Drake, and a lot of you have this weird idea in your head that going viral is just some like random phenomenon. But let's say you DM Drake, and for the roll of the dice Jesus did today, he saw your DM and responded to you. How do you prove you're a good fit for what you're offering him, right? And so does it start with because you say so? Does it start with proving yourself beforehand? Like, should you have worked with another artist at his level or at his standard? Does it come with, potential? Do you think it just happens because you just sent the DM and you had what they call ambition and he's supposed to take a chance on you? Like, how do you prove this, right? For yourself, not even to him. Just how do you know this DM is worth spending the time doing? And this is where, again, is going to take a little bit of thinking for yourself, because now you have to consider, well, what's the point of DMing somebody for this opportunity? What's the point of getting this person in my network or getting in their network, right? And if it's, I want to be a part of what they're doing, then again, how do you validate to yourself that you're worth it?
Really recommend is finding people who are on the same level as you, or you find somebody who's just a little bit above you, but not by much. Again, like don't shoot for Drake. Maybe an artist that is signed to Drake, or maybe somebody who is signed to an artist that's signed to Drake, or somebody that's like lower down in the chain, so to speak, right? Because if you start there, it's going to be much easier to access those people. You're going to have a much higher chance of success talking to them, right? So find people who are either below your level or on your level or just barely above your level that you can connect with. And as you do this, you're going to slowly plant the seeds with them, because you never know when that connection is going to take you to another connection.
So the only issue with what he's saying here that I could like nitpick on is the angle of calling them levels, right? Because we talked about this 2 weeks ago when we were saying how AI is making the algorithm pretty much a flat earth. If you have girls on TikTok that can be on the same algorithm as Taylor Swift, then when we're talking about levels, it's almost subjective, right? This is what I meant by like, how do you validate that you're worth the conversation or worth the insertion and submission into a network, right? Into somebody's like very valuable network. Like, what makes you so cool, right? Well, this is where it starts to kind of like be a struggle for many artists because of this identity of levels, right? There's somebody like, let's say, let's pick two random rappers. You have Kendrick Lamar and Tyga, two very, 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 popular rappers, but are they on the same level? And then whoever answers that question, your metric is probably very different than the person next to you. And so when we do this, this is where people's networks start to kind of like fold or really not really hold water when it comes to their resources, right? So if you have somebody who's really, really, really popular, but when they talk online or when they, try to move their influence, it only goes about as far as their network. It doesn't really, move the needle as far as the planet. Then how valuable are they in terms of what we're comparing them to, right? So let's say you have a really popular, I don't know, kick streamer. Like they're really popular, super real cult like following and stuff like that. When you put them on stage next to, let's say, a Bruno Mars, how does that compare? Like, what are the levels that we're looking at right here? Are we looking at the same levels? Are we looking at two different levels? Does it matter about musical skill? I didn't even address that. So what are we really looking at here, right? And it's not really nothing he's advocating for. I think it's just how we have conversations about music. I think when we have the conversations, it's always stemming from our personal connection to artists. That's why I say a lot of you guys don't really know why you like your favorite artists. And if I try to really break it down to you from a musical perspective, it's a hard conversation to have versus the one you have because you heard it in high school or because your parents played it or it's because what you grew up listening to or because it represents your town or your identity or whatever you were going through. When we do it from a musical perspective, a lot of it is not really there. It's mostly like 90% emotion and sentiment and then 10% musicality. So how artists may measure these levels are probably going to be very different from how you measure these levels and then vastly different from how investors and corporations look at these levels. So that's the only real confusing part I would say is in this whole networking conversation when it comes to entertainment. If you went to a different industry like construction, this is kind of easy. Like, you would want to know architects, you would want to know foremen, you would want to know engineers and like, union leaders and stuff like that. Those are the people you would want in your network. It's kind of like cut and dry. Positions are there, resumes are there. But when it comes to like how you as fans value music, like I said, because your mom listened to it, and then how investors value music, and it's like because Drake sells the most, then it starts to muddy up the conversation as to who you should really be networking with as far as like managers, artists, producers, and songwriters and stuff.
But the whole thing is like you're not always ready for the next connection. You may think you are. You may think your beats are good enough for, whoever. You may think that, your songs or like whatever you do as an artist is good enough to be at a certain level. But like the truth is, a lot of times it's not. And that's fine. Like everybody is going through this growth stage in their music career and in their professional career, whatever it is they do. And the whole thing is you just can't start at the top. So work your way up slowly. So we know the people that we want to reach, but how do we reach them? Instagram is probably the best way that you possibly got. Instagram is like the modern day LinkedIn. It's the way that everybody kind of gets to know each other. It's a great place to show off your resume, so to speak. People can immediately see what you've got done. So if your Instagram is not set up fully, I recommend checking out my video on personal branding. It goes in depth into all the things that you need to worry about when it comes to how you display yourself and how you put yourself on. And having a strong personal branding is the first step to being able to network successfully. So once
He is absolutely right. Now, the only thing that you're going to struggle with as an artist is two things. You're going to struggle with the human connection you need with people, right? So let's say you do work on your Instagram and you make sure all your pictures are cute and all of them are edited and stuff like that. Eventually, your audience will take note of that. They'll be like, "Oh, okay, this Instagram is clearly like an official business thing, right?" But then when we see you on the street and it doesn't correlate with what you post online, then a lot of people will either ping you for that, or they won't either draw some kind of value to what you're doing to be towards your business. They'll think what you're doing is just kind of like for play, right? And I have this conversation with people that are trying to be like on social media on or online all the time, and they live stream and things like that. And I try to explain to them that everything you do and who you talk to and why you're talking to them has to make sense. Otherwise, you're just playing around. And again, it sucks because a lot of people want to just play around, but then also value themselves as the same way he's describing right now. So let's say you're playing around on your Instagram, right? You're just doing random little selfies and puckered lip videos in your story, right? And then your job sees it. Then suddenly how you've managed your social media matters, right? If you're doing the same thing and let's say your PR manager sees it, right? Now suddenly it matters how you're controlling your social media. But if I explain this to people before it gets to that problem, then we start to deal with the resistance of, well, I'm not comfortable doing this, or why should I have to go private? I should be able to hang out with my friends and all this stuff like that, right? But again, when it comes to the value you're bringing, then you have to really be intentional about that, right? And so a lot of people, they'll be doing stuff and they'll act like they don't understand the consequences to it, right? So if you want to do like scantily clad photos on Instagram, fine, that's okay, you're an adult, right? But what comes with that, if you're thinking like, now that I'm doing that, no one should think anything different of me, then you're not really considering the network that you're in, which is okay to do, but you're also not considering the network that you're building, right? And so if your network is going to be built on things or people, not things, but people that are going to be beneficial to you, then you have to think about how you're beneficial to them, right? And so one of the ways people are doing that is with their social media pages. They're basically turning, like you said, Instagram or Facebook into like a LinkedIn page. Whereas most people aren't even using the platforms like that. They're just consuming. They're on there just scrolling reels. They're just looking at funny cat videos and stuff like that, and then just sharing random stuff on their pages, and then nothing happens. And then they just get more and more followers over time, and they just keep growing and growing and growing. And there's literally nothing happening with the page for years at a time. And so as they keep doing that, you start to get this kind of like equity FOMO. And we talked about that last week, where now they want to start to have some kind of name for themselves and they want to brand themselves. But then when we look at what they're doing, they don't have any kind of brand. They have like almost no productivity, even if it's like a musician that's going live every day. Like if you have people going live every day, but there's no real strategic business move going, having that conversation with them about joining a network is almost like pulling teeth, because they're not really understanding what it is that they bring. They don't really understand the lack of value that they're, providing. And then also they don't really understand what it is you demand of them as far as consistency and the types of decision making you're asking of them, right? So this is going to be a difficult part here when it comes to the social media brand, because so many people want to be on social media for fun and they use it as fun. And that is cool for the tech companies. But if you want to call yourself like an entrepreneur, or you want to call yourself a content creator or an artist, then you have to now think that you are now using social media as a tool, and it's not some diary or some journal or your identity. That's not what that is. Until most people get that part through their head, they're going to just sit there and just spin wheels forever.
Once you have this strong personal brand, you know who you want to reach out to, send them a message. Maybe it is an artist that's got a similar amount of followers as you. Don't hit them up and be like, yo man, I'm doing features for the low, like $50, get at me. Like, don't do shit like that. Again, see where you can add value. And by the way, you don't have to reach out to them right away just because you know them or you want to connect with them. I've got a list of so many people that I want to connect with, but I don't reach out until the timing is right. And it's all about figuring out when that timing is actually going to be right. Because right now, they may not have something that you can really help with. But who knows? Maybe 3 months down the road, they're going to have something that they need you for. If you reach out too early and you try to add value when there's not really any value to be added, and you're just kind of wasting their time, it's a much less chance that you're going to reconnect when the time's right. And who knows? Sometimes it's okay to hit them up and be like, hey, like, I'm around if you need me, love what you do, show support. Like, that's cool. But don't expect everything to be an instant success. Some of the connections that I have that ended up being like some of the most important, useful connections that I've ever had was not until the relationship was developed like 2 years down the road. Like there's a lot of people that I'm connected with that like nothing that we really did would make sense to connect the dots. But then when it comes time, if we're ready, then that's when it connects and that's when it makes an impact. So these are all kind of things that you have to think about when it comes to networking. Like step 1, figure out where you're at. Step 2, find people that are kind of on your same level, maybe a little bit above. Step 3, find out how you can add value. Step 4, reach out and figure out like what the move is, right? Everybody's going to have different shit going on. Everybody's going to have different opportunities. Everybody's living their own busy lifestyle, trying to grind and hustle. So anything you're able to do that helps them get to where they want to be quicker is going to be really helpful. And a lot of times it's either, you're doing something that's going to make you both money, you're doing something that puts on a good play for an artist, or maybe it solidifies a plan that they have for one of their artists if it's like a manager or something. If you're reaching out directly to an artist, sometimes it's just doing things that makes their life easier. Like if they suck at posting TikTok content and you're really good at making TikTok videos, figure out how to post some damn TikTok videos for them. Make them some content. Maybe if you do videography like me, shoot them some free reels, show them what you could do. And then if they need you, they're going to reach out. I also want to talk about some higher level networking.
So before he gets into the high level networking, again, he's giving very, 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 very good advice. I've done all of this, right? And the thing is this is going to take away from what you're trying to do personally. It will, because you're essentially trying to inject yourself into a kind of like a bigger network, which is the music industry, right? And so this is why you'll see a lot of artists struggle with this, because now you have to serve a greater purpose, right? You have to be bigger than what you're trying to do. So like even with this YouTube channel, that's one of the projects for me, right? This YouTube channel should generally help most musicians and fans alike, whereas I have my own personal musical project that I want to work on, right? So then if you see a situation where you have a favorite artist, somebody you follow, and you're like, dang, I wish you would work more on this, or have more of this, or have an improvement here, and you are the type of person that has skill in that area, then you're valuable enough to possibly be within that artist's network. The issue is that you have to now think outside of yourself now. And if you struggle with that, then you might as well not offer any of your insight, right? Or at least, trying to be a part of their network. But if you're a person that does not have these skills, then this also provides you an opportunity to learn these skills. And this is where I place the pin right here, where creativity has a place in society as far as creating jobs and as far as creating some kind of like economy for a community. Because if we start to shift our thinking this way, then we can consistently build upon this, right? And I can give you an example. If you have, like, for example, a musician who's trying to release a CD, and we talked about being executive producers by investing into the recording process, right? As a fan, you can do that. So that then gives you the opportunity to figure out how you can make a return on your investments just as a fan. And then that now moves you from fan, honestly, to investor. And now you're an investor in one music career, but if you expand yourself, you can think of entire catalogs, entire record labels, equity into companies that are also into the same things you're interested in, right? So this is all based on the foundation of people creating songs, people creating dances, and people coming together to sing and dance, right? And so if we can wrap our minds around doing that consistently instead of trying to sit around and just play all the time, then we can have more, value in what it is we're trying to do. So what he's saying here makes a whole lot of sense. The issue he's going to have is that the ears it lands on are going to have to be of those that are receiving this, right? So that means you're going to look at situations where you're going to be in the game, let's say 10 years, right? And then some high schooler is going to come along and they're going to need help. And the way you're going to have to help them is either for free or with some kind of like benefit to the high schooler, because the idea of letting them, suffer or whatever means that you would clearly see that they need your assistance for your network and your resources, and then just allow that, right? And so what that then does when you do help them is it bridges the gap between how they can network, because they're now tapped into your network, but it also bridges the gap between our expectations and our cultural standards, let's say, for each other as musicians, right? But if you don't think this way, if this offends you, and if this is something that really, really does not resonate you, meaning you would rather be a musician who does everything on your own, only you and the gang is in on this, right? Then that means you will have to deal with the abilities and the skill set that are at the mercy of the people you network with, right? So if your cousin is your engineer and your cousin smokes weed and your cousin just is not really learning music theory, your cousin is not going to school for audio engineering, your cousin is not going to school for music business to where he understands metadata and he's signing and writing contracts just off the love of the block, right? If he's doing that, then that means you could possibly find yourself in a finesse 2-time situation, right? But if you do feel this resonating with you and you're trying to really make a difference with what you're saying, then you have to really pick apart how you're going to go forward with this kind of thinking, right? And that's the part that he figured out, but it's just something that he probably was humble enough to actually submit to. Most people, they'll learn this information and then try to change what he just said.
When you are at a point where you've got, a pretty decent level of success, you've got like things that you want to sell, or you're trying to get people to listen to your music, you need to follow the law of attraction, right? This is not going to be one of those things where you reach out and you try to sell somebody something. Like, that is the absolute worst way to connect with people, and chances are that's going to get you blocked by everybody. Like, you're going to be shunned out of the music industry if you go in trying to sell to people, because people don't want to be sold to. They just want things that bring them closer to their goals, bring them new ideas creatively, whatever that's going to look like. So when you're trying to sell something, you're trying to get people to listen to your music, follow the law of attraction. And what I mean by that is give them a reason to come to you rather than you approaching them. A lot of times networking is done in reverse. Like, you think it's you reaching out to somebody, but maybe it's putting yourself in a position that somebody else wants to reach out to you, right? Think about these managers or artists or producers that you want to reach out to. Like, there's a reason that you want to talk to them. It's whether they got accolades, or they're really good at what they do, or you think their personality is cool. These are all factors that you can put into your own personal branding, put into the way that you put yourself out there. And, if you do all of that, it's going to be so much easier for people to approach you. Like, people are actually going to want to approach you because you've got something that they already know you could provide. And once you get to that point, that's when it clicks. That's when you start making sales. That's when you start getting a lot of streams on your music. That's when managers reach out if you're an artist. It's when other producers will reach out if you're a producer. Like, this is where real moves start to happen, is when you prove to the world that you do something unique, you do something different. So it's a matter of, being on top of your personal branding. Like I said, please watch the other video if you haven't already. It's so much sauce in there. But yeah, focus on those things, figure out how you can add value, and attract instead of chasing.
And that's a great point. I agree with this a whole 100,000%. Like I said, the only issue this information is going to have is like who it lands on and whether or not they're going to use it, right? Because a lot of people are going to hear this and they're going to think like, oh, he's talking about me. I get it. Like, I'm 100% what he's saying. Or I think I could do it. I think I can get it right. And there's no way that I'm going to lose, right? And so when we do that, we have to really consider what he's saying, how we feel about ourselves, and then how people may feel about our results, right? And so this is, again, like I said, a really tough conversation for most people, because they have to now like think about, okay, I like doing things this way. I like feeling this way when people validate me for, what it is that I do. Suddenly, none of that matters anymore, right? It's like when you join a new band and things like that. It's like, yeah, you were really, really good in the practice room, but now when you're on stage in front of a brand new audience, in front of next to new bandmates, you have to really consider how much value you bring to all of them first, before you start asking for validation from the audience or from the director or from the other bandmates and stuff like that. So it's a conversation of vulnerability a lot of times with networking. And I'm only saying this because I've done these networking style conversations in sales from all kinds of different things, right? And the questions people ask usually stem from how somebody's going to receive them, right? If it's, what if they say no? Or what if I can't deliver? Or what if I don't look the part, and things like that. And it's all about how the other person feels about them. And those are the things that people focus on when they have kind of struggles with this networking side. Whereas if they were to focus on, well, how can I be of such immense value that it's almost undeniable to want to work with me? then you don't have to really worry about how people feel, because most people will go past their feelings to get something valuable from you. At least the smart ones will. And so let's get into our next video. And this is actually going to be a fun one because he's going to dive into some stuff that we've actually never ever tried to look at, but it's going to be very helpful to musicians, seeing that we do need to be on stage a lot.
When you start early, you know, I guess some people like,
They'll start later.
they'll start later. They wake up later.
A lot of artists will do that.
Yeah.
They'll work through the night.
But I got shit to do in the day.
Yeah.
I got things to take care of. I got, you know, other ventures and stuff to do. So it's like, you know, I don't really I can't really function like that. You know what I'm saying? I like being up and doing my thing.
When you were first starting in the business though, but all that stuff was out the window. You whatever time you wanted to go to be in the studio,
we were at Brandon's Way till, I mean, I would sleep there sometimes, bro.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I was in that studio since I was 17.
Yeah.
16, 17.
Yeah.
17, yeah.
At what point did you start to look at the business side of things and start to be like, I need to know this better? Because you're an executive who, I mean, you know, we say producer, we talked a lot about the song, but like, you know the business.
Yeah. One from experience that I went to law school too. So that like was a big thing. And I did that while producing. But I think you just go through, you know, I never had a horror story. I've seen them happen, but I never had a horror story. The one thing that really did pique my interest in trying to figure out how shit really worked and just terminology and all that kind of stuff was when I did a joint venture deal for my co-pub deal at UNPG, and it was an MDRC deal.
When was this?
This was like 2012.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 2012, 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
So I was a kid, you know. Doesn't sound like a bad idea. And it wasn't a bad idea. I don't even want to shit on the deal. The issue was there was a turn of music consumption.
Yeah.
Streaming kicked in. We didn't have streaming. So the deals were pre-streaming and were basically prehistoric.
MDRC deals, man.
So what an MDRC is a minimum delivery release commitment.
Yes.
It says, okay, you have to have 2 songs that come out in the marketplace.
100%.
100% of 2 songs. So it sounds great. But if, let's just use the example, me and you are writing songs. But it's never that way because you usually write on an artist, right? Or something. So let's say a third. Or let's even break it down. They have somebody. There's 4 people. 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. That means I got to write 8 songs to get out of that 2-song deal.
Yep.
Doesn't sound ridiculous. However, it has to come out in a marketplace that's deemed satisfactory by the publisher, which at that time had to be physical sales.
On a major label.
On a major label.
In a major label system.
In a major label system.
Yeah.
And had to be from these places, and digital downloads counted, but there had to be a certain amount of digital downloads in order to be counted. Holiday albums didn't count. Compilation albums didn't count. All that shit didn't count.
Streaming didn't count.
Streaming did not count. Streaming
didn't even exist.
It didn't even exist.
Yeah.
So you have a record that made, let's say the deal was 35 grand, and you got a record that made 200 grand, and you recouped it. You would think, okay, well, y'all made the money off of it.
Yeah.
Let me move into my next part of the deal. Nope.
Crazy.
Because you didn't hit the MDRC.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is really gonna confuse a lot of people if you don't understand the terminology. But I want to just kind of show you like how he got to his understanding. Really, that's why we're highlighting this. So he asked him, the host on the right asked him a question. He said, how did you start to focus on the business? And what he's explaining is that he got into this MDRC deal, and it made him kind of like have to understand more of the deal because of his basic inability of trying to move on with the contract, right? He didn't understand what was happening. So in order to get understanding, he had to learn a lot more, right? And so what that means is that the value he thought he had in terms of a musician hit a wall, right? And this is what I mean by it's a tough conversation, right? Most of you make really good music like he did. Most of you can make good music good enough to get signed like he did. But when you're in the deal, even inside the deal, as he was actively in the contract, there was still a lack of understanding there. And it's not necessarily his fault, but it is a thing where like, now that we know, we should be aware of this kind of things, right? So he said he went to law school while he was producing. I'm assuming that was a part of this, right? And so when we're talking about reading the room, how many of you know you don't understand music law? And how many of you, now that you know this, or suggesting or implying that you don't know this, are considering going into music law in order to be successful? Because then when you get into music law, or just law in general, the conversations you're having with people are different. You can no longer just do songs because they're your homies from the block. And you're no longer friends with people that maybe live the same culture as you. Maybe you're more friends with lawyers now, or maybe, you know, judges and police officers and things like that. People who are more involved with the law, right? And so with that being understood, that means your lifestyle is going to be affected now. Now you're networking with people who are more involved with the law, which means your law-abiding ability plays a role in how these people network with you, right? If they're trying to be upstanding citizens or be within the law litigation part of the world, and you're breaking the law and you're part of their network, it plays a role, right? So that's why him reading the room probably changed a whole lot for him as far as how he approached his music, and then also how people need to approach him.
And
all right, folks, we're going to take a cool about this.
And so when we talk about like the idea of how people approach you, we usually consider like record labels and stuff like that. And like I said 2 weeks ago, the record label here in the United States, they typically target people that aren't really privy to what's happening in the contracts, because it makes it harder to get past the deals that will outright benefit them versus trying to get a deal that won't benefit them as much because they have more of a bottom line to worry about than it does, you know, your artist career.
I think it's how you approach your story and your issues, because you say, I never had a horror story, but you know how many producers I talked to that felt that absolutely crushed their entire business?
you know, I had to make tough decisions.
Yeah.
With that catalog, and the people that I was signed to, they were amazing. You know, they were very, 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 very. You know, they're my musical parents.
Yeah, no, you said it before.
Right.
It was Babyface,
Right.
man, but like,
But he made a call.
Yeah.
And this is why you'll never hear anybody say anything bad about him.
yes,
He made a call. He said, "Hey, this structure is inefficient now, in this day and time. We need to let him out."
yeah,
And it was done. Him and Tony.
like that.
And it was like that. And it was out.
And that's a networking thing, right? Because what if Babyface just didn't know him, wasn't really connected, and really had no connection to him, right? There's two things that could have been happening here. It could have been like he clearly saw who he was, and because he's in his network, seen the details of the situation, right? Or Babyface had some just overarching empathy for artists in bad contracts. We don't know. But the point here is that if he wasn't within the network, there was really no opportunity for this to happen. So this is why the host is saying he's heard a lot of producers have similar situations, but it crushed their business because they probably didn't have the network or resources to deal with an issue like that.
You know, and
either way, when the solution was just for somebody to Deus Ex Machina a phone call to get him out of the contract. So there's really no telling how this would have ended if that phone call never happened.
And you can go to him because you have a great relationship.
I had a great relationship.
Great relationship.
I get it. Sometimes people got to do the rah-rah, but I would have never, I knew, I felt safe with them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I felt like they had my best interests.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, I had to leave it there for a little bit of time, and then that was it. And
Yeah, what?
I had to leave the catalog there, like a portion of it there.
Yeah.
For a little bit of time, and then
For it to, yeah.
Whatever.
Uh-huh.
At that point, I think I had like a slew of other records. You did some Drake shit and this and that. And after that, so it was like, fuck it. That catalog is like, that's lunch money compared to where, but it's believing in yourself, right? I didn't wallow in, I was like, I'm out.
Right. And you could have.
You could
a
have.
lot of people, bro, when I came to this town, a lot of people were telling me, out the gate, they were telling us to like, whatever you do, don't do a publishing deal. And every single time I heard that, it was always coming from a producer. And a producer would be like, because they're going to get you in an MDRC deal. I was like, all right, cool. That was like 2015.
Right.
But it was also at the same time, like, I don't know, that's your experience. And then I spent time with the producer, and it was just like, you could tell that they weren't in the right headspace.
They weren't in the right headspace.
And then when I would talk to people that was in the business or the publishers, I'd be like, okay, we'll entertain it, but we're not doing any MDRC deals. They're like, no, we don't even really do that anymore.
They don't. They're non-existent.
Yeah. Don't, I mean, even in 2015, 2016, they're like, we'll do an MDC.
Yeah.
Not minimum delivery requirement, but just deliver.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. And recoup.
Yeah, and recoup.
Today, it's just 2-year license, 10-year reversion, you know.
Easy.
Yeah. Those deals aren't predatory or anything. And that,
Yeah. I mean, you just had to, you just got to go through it to get it. And that's just the ever evolving, the ever evolving situation with technology.
Yeah.
It comes and it disrupts.
But you educated yourself to be able to get through it.
And I figured out, okay, cool. Like, really the only option is to just be dope and win. You had but you had a tricky experience. You got out of it. I'm alive. I'm supported by the folks that signed me. They was cool. They was with it. Boom. Let them fly.
And so most times when we hear about this, people get resentment. Like they get jaded and things like that. Like they'll be like, "Ah, man, you guys hurt me really, really bad." And they want to like, yell and stuff like that. They want to start yelling on the phone, poo shiesty and shit like that, right? But the reality is that this is something that just goes with the business. Like most people are just going to have to understand that you're leveraging products and businesses and services, right? If you want to get this whole, like, you're going to do right by me 100% of the time kind of loyalty, then you need to develop your own business from the ground up, right? Because what you're basically doing is you're delegating a big portion of your artist career when you get signed. But the issue is most people want the value of a major record label, right? So if you're going to build up a catalog to where a major record label wants to sign you, it would benefit you to try to maximize as much value out of that as possible, right? But then it also begs the question as to why more people want to be music executives when they want to make money instead of artists, right? So how do you think you are managing becoming a superpower or a contender when it comes to power dynamics in the music industry, right? And that's really why we network. That's really the core reason why most people want to network and get together with people, is that there's power there. And the power there can be utilized for good or utilized for like greed and shit like that. But the more poignant thing here is that if you're an artist, why would you then leverage a lot of your power away with the expectation of authority, right? And so let's get into our next clip, and then we're going to have, this is a bit more of a personalized conversation where you can actually use this in your day-to-day, but it should help you in terms of having these conversations and then developing these relationships in person.
And why you do it. How would you summarize it? I help people learn that they have access to one of the most beautiful instruments in the world that can help them negotiate whatever reality they desire. And I learned this through my first ever vocal teacher, Miss Stanley. And I'll never forget this experience. There's a dingy music corner in South Australia, and I would go there for lessons. And the first time I met her, I walked into the room. She's an old lady, and she says nothing to me except the words, "Sit down, young man." So I sit. It feels super awkward. It feels super weird. And then she plays one key nonstop on the piano for 2 minutes. It's literally, I was like, oh shit, this is like something out of a horror movie. And then she turns around, she goes, "How do you feel?" I said, "Nothing, weird, awkward, what?" And then she goes, "Good," turns around, plays this beautiful song called Mariage d'Amour. Goes over for 2 minutes. And then she turns around, she goes, "How do you feel?" And I said, weirded out from before still, but I feel, wow, that song had love, there was lust, there was romance, there was excitement. And she goes, "Good. Honey, most people go through life speaking like this. I'm going to teach you how to speak like this." And that's, to me at the time, I remember thinking to myself, that is the greatest sales pitch I've ever heard in my life.
She's actually pretty smart with that. But it's a thing that how a lot of artists see the world this way, right? Like where you hear a car horn honking or a train blaring, I hear a chord. I hear the notes in between, right? Where you guys would hear like a movie soundtrack and just a bunch of like excitement and your emotions going. I'm hearing all of the pitches. I'm hearing the intonation of the drums. I'm hearing the cymbals ring out. I'm hearing all of that, right? And I'm only hearing that because of probably her understanding of the piano, right? Like her understanding of what that one note did for 2 minutes probably was just to drive home the point of her understanding of the song that she played next. which took way more practice, way more dynamics, and way more, lived experience to get with, right? You got to sit with a song. It's got to be a part of your muscle memory and things like that. And so because she had that level of understanding, it now opened up a lot of her perspective when it came to how people communicate, but then how people deliver music and emotion and things like that. And so him being open to that, he was able to take that and then learn how to use that with vocal coaching, right? Now you can use this with a variety of things. Like you can see an architect look at a house and they'll look at it completely differently than you will. You can see a painter do the same thing with a picture, right? The point here is that this is going to help you develop your network, but you also have to be open and intentional about learning a skill like this. Most people will not do this because this will step right outside of who they believe they are, how they feel about themselves, and how they want other people to feel about themselves.
Because I'm now going to sign up for 12 classes with you because you've just helped me realize something I've been struggling with my entire life. I haven't been thinking about my voice as an instrument. I thought it was a tool. What do you do with a hammer? You use a hammer. What do you do with a screwdriver? You use a screwdriver. What do you do with a piano? You play with it. What do you do with the violin? You play with it. And she started to teach me that I have this instrument that depending on how I play it, it changes and shifts how others feel.
How much do you think that will change the trajectory of someone's life? Like, what is the impact? If I get really good at communication, why does it matter?
I was invisible my entire childhood. I was invisible. I wasn't the cool kid. I wasn't the good-looking kid. I wasn't the charismatic kid. I wasn't the funny kid. I wasn't the anything kid. And by learning this skill, I've been able to negotiate an incredible reality.
And so that's kind of the point here about reading the room. He said he felt like he was an invisible kid, but when he learned this skill, and this skill he had to be intentional about, he had to practice it, he had to get it wrong, he had to try it out, and then you guys looked at him weird for it because he did it wrong, all that stuff. He had to practice that over time to where he now became undeniably valuable. That's the key here, undeniably valuable. Not that he felt good about himself or he did it proficiently enough to where he satisfied his internal sensibilities. It was that he felt he was struggling somewhere, learned a skill that made him undeniably valuable.
That's why I love Tim Ferriss's quote so much. Reality is negotiable. Cool. Well, what skill do we use to negotiate the reality we desire? It's our ability to communicate. Teaching that to others has been one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done. And I genuinely believe that makes the world a better place. And I almost sometimes feel like I'm just here to tune pianos. I'm here to help people tune and fix and learn how to play. And I get so much fulfillment from that. My parents have this fundamental belief. It's so beautiful. They believe every child is born with a diamond, with a gift, with something in them. So I found one of my diamonds early on. It was magic, right? So I was really good at magic. They hoped it was medicine, accounting, the Asian prophecy. So when I found that diamond being magic, I thought that all I had to do was get really good technically as a magician, because that's what I was taught at university, being an accountant. Oh, if you become really technically proficient as an accountant, you'll become an amazing accountant. You'll be successful. You get the BMW, you get everything, get partner. So I thought, okay, magic, same thing. Get really good technically. Spent thousands of hours in my bedroom by myself in front of a mirror practicing magic. Got nowhere because I was missing an ingredient. Magicians call it showmanship. Fancy word for communication skills. Right, we're both inspired by the same person, I believe. One of the people we're inspired by is Darren Brown. Impeccable showmanship, impeccable technical skills. So when you pair technical skills with great communication skills, that's when you thrive.
Have you ever seen a singer get on stage and they can sing really, really well, but it's like their eyes are just kind of like wandering off. They're just staring at a spot because they're really focused on singing. It kind of loses the immersion of the music, right? And that's the point he's talking about, showmanship. Showmanship is something that really was a big thing in the, I want to say like the 50s, and it kind of stopped around the 90s because people kind of gave into the, oh, we want to be regular people on stage thing. But really the point was that showmanship kind of allowed for people to, really honestly, it probably went further than the 50s, probably the 20s and 30s, yeah. But showmanship was a thing that brought forth like a lot of attention, variety, and creativity to it, right? It was one thing that you could do a magic trick, like he said, but if you do a magic trick with a certain style, a certain pizzazz, a certain, identity, it made you valuable. It made you valuable for a certain lane, a certain demographic, and a certain niche.
One of the people we're inspired by is Darren Brown. Impeccable showmanship, impeccable technical skills. So when you pair technical skills with great communication skills, that's when you thrive, I believe. Because let's say, for example, you're technically brilliant, you're a 10 out of 10 technically, but you're 3 out of 10 with your communication skills. Do you think people perceive you to be a 10 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10?
Now, here's where I said a lot of people are going to struggle with this. Because you have people in your life that are friends with you, and because you have people in your life that enjoy being around you, a lot of you will not accurately judge yourself here. Right? And it'll be something as simple as like the amount of people you're around, or the amount of people that you're like, there's so many metrics that are going to basically create a variable in how you're going to measure yourself with what he's explaining here, that you may not be as accurate as you believe or as you could be, right? So you may think, oh, I'm a really cool person because when people talk to me, they never say nothing bad. Or I'm a really cool person because usually when I talk to people, they seem like they get some good information, right? But the point here is that it's not really about how you perceive yourself, it's how they perceive you. And usually you won't get that information. Like if as a musician, you will rarely get that information until you're at a live performance. And even then it could be, you know, bound with all the emotional, physiological effects that you did in your music, which we talked about last week. So in order to get a true accurate representation of this, typically what people try to do are like surveys or like Q&As and stuff. Anonymity helps because when people can hide their identity, they can be truly honest. But if you try to do this for yourself, I would honestly tell you to take it with a grain of salt, because you might do this with some inaccuracies and some biases based on your own limited perspective. So him having a vocal coach is probably one thing. His teacher telling him that showmanship was a big part of it probably added another layer to it. But that outside perspective added a lot of clarity for him to be able to teach it to others.
Out of 10. And you know this, hearing so many different pitches. Some of the greatest ideas have flown under your radar without you noticing because the founder didn't do it justice.
It's an interesting idea to think that we might rise or fall to the level, not of our technical ability, but our communication skills as it relates to how the world perceives us.
And it's both. The importance there is both. Whereas I feel like we get stuck into this world where we think, oh, it's one or the other. And my students always ask me this, which one should I focus on? And I said, well, the reality is both. It's not as simple, it's both. Because if I have great showmanship and then when it comes to doing sleight of hand, I suck, that's not going to work either. The people that I've been able to help the most in my career so far are the people who are technically so amazing at what they do. And they've been hidden away in the back office as a technician. And then bloody Brad always gets the promotion, right? Brad always gets it. Damn it, Brad got it again. Brad's not smart as me. Brad is not as good as me, right? And it's because Brad talks better.
And it's as simple as that. Brad just talks better, or Denise has nice tits. Literally, it's that simple. And a lot of people hate this, and they don't like it, and they really, 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 really resent it, and they try to change the rules, and they really want to, you know, move the needle as far as making a difference in this topic. But it's been as consistent as math, right? And so now that you know this, would you make a difference in how you communicate, whether through music or with your fans, right? And then in the reverse, if you're a fan and you're saying something like, maybe I want to be a super fan, or I want to invest in this artist, or I really want to consider, you know, being a part of what they call the fan group of this artist, how do you differentiate yourself from somebody who's just, you know, a better, charismatic, cooler person, right? And this is kind of what he's highlighting here. And what I said in the beginning is that most people are going to struggle with this because they try to pick one or the other. They're like, either I'm going to be super, super good and play the background. You ever seen like the wife, she likes to do all the chores, but she really, really doesn't like her husband as much. That's where you're technically proficient, but there's no showmanship, right? That's one version of that. Another version of that would be like the dude who's like, really, really loves the bad chick, but then at the same time hates what comes with being with the bad chick. He hates the showmanship, but he also really values the technicality that comes with her being a baddie, right? So here he's saying what you should be doing if you want to be truly successful, what I call successful is a superstar. If you want to be a superstar, then you're going to have to be proficient in both. You have to consider both, balance both, or work on both and be best at both. Because if you're going to be a person who's going to be average in either, then you're going to be like the person in his example, where you'll be working the back line of a job, or you'll be in the background of whatever people's network and stuff like that. And you'll never be picked first because you don't have showmanship, charisma, and you don't have that go-getter driving intention, right? And so these are things that actually make you super valuable to people on the front, right? So at the very front, like he's saying, the showmanship part, that's where you have like a hit song, or maybe you'll have a viral post or something like that. The technical proficiency comes in your ability to replicate it or be able to bring solutions to, whoever it is that you're working with. That's where the value is.
It's the promotion, right? Brad always gets it. Ah, damn it, Brad got it again. Brad's not smart as me. Brad is not as good as me, right? And it's because Brad talks better. He's more visible in the work environment.
You really think it often comes down to just how we speak and communicate?
Our value, yes. Because if you can't communicate your value in a way that is clear and concise, people, it's not their responsibility to see the brilliance that exists within you.
And this is a thing I see a lot of TikTok musicians struggle with. There's a bunch of TikTokers, for some reason, that keep trying to explain to other TikTok musicians how to blow up on TikTok instead of just posting them performing or posting them playing music or, their music videos and stuff like that. And it's because they feel as though if you have good music in your head, then it should statistically just be good music everywhere. But how do you prove that if you haven't worked on the showmanship? And the showmanship would be done through live performance or, music videos and things like that. And so if you're not working on both of these things, then no, we won't see the value. You'll be doing a lot of work. Like I said, you'll be people live streaming all the time. They'll be all on the social media apps, all on the internet. They're not doing any editing. They're not doing any metadata. They don't own any of the content. There's no copyrights being made. There's no networking being done. The sponsorships are about like $200, $300 a month. Like there's really nothing going on, right? So in terms of if you're not going to do a whole bunch of like clout and financial jumping, then why not get technically proficient? Why not get even extremely talented at what you do to where it's undeniable for people to work with you? Well, the reason you wouldn't do that is because it's boring. You'll be spending a lot of time in the studio recording, practicing, and then getting content done versus actually trying to read the comments, look at the likes, hang out in chat rooms, and then, just talk to people generally. Like you're not doing that all day. And so the balance would be understanding what system works for you to where if you do need to, be a part of a socialite type of thing, if that's a part of your brand or whatever, then you know how to make a system for that. But most of you don't have the system, let alone understand what he's explaining to build the system around this.
It's, I believe, your responsibility to learn how to shine your light brightly. It's super sad because I lived a massive part of my life like that. English is my third language. The first language I learned is a Chinese dialect. Not that impressive. My wife speaks 5, but thank you. The first language I learned was a Chinese dialect called Dijiu. Right, it's a bit of Dijiu for you. Aussi Dijiu Nang. Second language I then had to learn fluently is Vietnamese. Vinh là người Việt Nam, tôi là Vinh San ở nước Úc. So I had to learn all these different languages growing up. These were my first 2 core languages that if I wasn't proficient in it, grandma would be pissed off, mum would be pissed off. So we had to study it. And then I went to school and had to learn English. So I went to school, I was completely invisible. I couldn't communicate with any other kid. They couldn't communicate with me. So what do kids do? Oh, it's too hard. I'll just ignore you then.
They bully you.
Oh, yes. I didn't even know it was bullying because I couldn't understand them. Right? I could kind of read what they seemed to mean, but I had no idea what they were saying. So I spent so much of my childhood, especially in those single-digit years around 5, 6, and 7. This is super sad, but I just spent a lot of time in the toilet because I didn't want to deal with the shame of being seen by myself. So I just hid. I just found a corner somewhere and no one... And then gradually I started to learn English. But even when I learned English, I sounded funny because I had an accent. So then they called me Fob. F-O-B, fresh off the boat. Yeah. And they just kept calling me, oh, there's the Fob, there's the Fob. Oh, he's so fobby.
And what's crazy is a lot of you probably in your head, you're thinking of like a totally different race. But he's probably, just because of his complexion and how race is managed in this country, he probably talking about people that look just like him. It happens to black people, happens to white people. Like if you talk a certain way, if you act a certain way, depending on how you look and people feel about you, they'll treat you a certain way, right? That's why I said it's kind of sad, but it's not really, because it's just kind of like a common thing for kids who are just not proficient in a lot of things. That's why parenting and getting your kids socially, adapted is important. But the key thing here is that he just didn't know the language, which is a bigger barrier gap than like anything about him just being weird, right? So just because he can't talk to you makes this very difficult for him, right? And so what he had to then do is take a huge initiative in terms of how he wanted to be represented, right? He couldn't just say, I'm going to just keep hiding in the toilet, because then eventually you're going to be like 40. Like, you can't keep doing that all your life. So he had to take initiative in how he was going to do that. And the way he did it was probably through communication, because he knew how to learn languages.
So then, even though I learned the English language now, I'm scared to speak it because I don't want to sound like a fob.
And that's the one note that his teacher was talking about. He knew the one notes. He knew how to do the scales, right? But he didn't know how to make an entire crowd sing his smash hit song, viral hit on stage. He didn't know how to do that yet.
And there were all these challenges. And so I know what it's like to feel invisible. I know what it's like to be ignored. And
that was a long time ago. And I guess the question that it leaves me with is, how easy is it for someone to learn? Like, what is the time span that it would take from the experience you've had with teaching people to make a radical change in your communication skills?
It depends on your level of desire and motivation.
If you really want it.
And that's the point here that I've been saying this whole time. It depends on your desire and motivation, because like I said, many of you're going to just assume you're okay. You're going to assume you're doing good, and you're going to probably project it onto other people. You're going to be like, yeah, I know other people that are bad. Yeah, even you I know people that should work on this. But no, if you pull it back and you think about yourself, how you communicate with people is a consistent thing. Who you communicate with is a consistent thing. Reading the room is a consistent thing. And you have to balance both of these things in terms of being technically proficient in doing that, but then also have the showmanship to be attractive doing it. And like I said, most of you are going to probably use your own biases to judge how well you do both of these things, but then you will also probably project the negative sides of how you feel about yourself onto others without addressing what it is that's within yourself. And so somebody like him would help you walk through that as an individual, which makes his job pretty interesting. But the point here is that as an artist, how do you do that when it comes to your career? And how does it come to trying to do that with people who clearly don't understand none of the stuff he's explaining, right? Because you could be in a room with a CEO or something like that, and they know nothing of what he's talking about, but you do, and you have to actually apply these skills, right? And so if you do that, does it then shape how you build your network, who you talk to, how you talk to, and things like that? And even if somebody does understand what you're saying, like he was explaining, if they're super smart and super proficient, it still doesn't justify them being in your network if they lack the other things that they need, whether it's results, showmanship, charisma, etiquette, manners, respect, honesty, all these other things. It really doesn't matter.
I'd say 3 to 6 months.
You think you can change your communication skills in a radical way in 3 to 6 months?
I've seen it. I've seen students do it. It's when, instead of just thinking about I'm trying to learn a new habit, it's what James Clear says. You adopt a new identity, where they adopt that new identity. Because one of the things I do is I share that story about my schooling experience at the beginning of my in-person classes, and I say, I want you all to imagine now you're at a new school. No one here in this room with us right now has any preconceived idea of who you are. Break the mold. Break it. And then you see grown adults do things they wouldn't normally do. Break out of the mold. Play with their voice. Be a little silly. Reconnect with their inner child. And then in that moment, they fall so deeply in love with that version of them because of the reactions they've been able to get from all those strangers around them that they commit to it.
And that right there is being an artist. Because if you're not really going to be a person that's willing to do that 100%, then more times than not, you're going to be a person that's just, you're being performative. Like, it's not really you. And when we talk about AI coming in and then building these networks and stuff like that, people look for this. Like, it's a human innate thing where we can kind of spot that you're normal and you're, naturally comfortable and stuff like that. And so what he's saying is you're practicing being exactly who you say you are. That's the point. Who you say you are, not who you think you are. Because when you say who you are, you now have to deliver. And a lot of people don't say who they are. There's this big thing I do with people I'm communicating with where I tell them, say it out loud. Speak in a full, complete sentence as far as like how you're thinking, how you're feeling. Because whether or not you want to offend somebody or whether or not you feel like it's worth saying, if you don't say it out loud, it may not even be real, right? That feeling you're feeling could be just some flighty hormone that's flying through your brain synapses. Whereas if you really want to stand behind what you're saying and you really want the world to believe what you're saying, meaning the molecules of people in front of you, the audiences or the people behind the CDs and speakers and headphones, then say it, right? So whenever I have conversations with artists, that's a really, really hard point to drive home because they have to now live with the convictions of what they believe, right? So if you want to be a super gangster rapper like DMX, but at the same time express your relationship with Jesus, you got to say it, because now you're going to have people chastising you for your lifestyle, for your beliefs, and all that stuff, right? But there's a lot of people who are rappers that say they believe in Jesus and they do not admit it, and they don't say it, and they won't say it in interviews. Their family probably don't even know, right? Type stuff, right? So the point here is that whether it's a religion, whether it's an identity, whether it's a personality, whether you're just a little quirky and you like to cuss a lot, the point is if you're not going to commit to it, then it's not really you. The thing you commit to every day, which is like I said, if you have the wife who does chores, but she's not, bubbly and things like that, then that means she's not that person, which means most people would just be like, oh, okay, divorce her. But at the end of the day, the honesty and accuracy is what you need, right? So that's the key thing we need to understand with what he's portraying here. Many of the things that he's showing here are going to be developed through practice. Like, you have to literally be the thing you say you are.
It's when you experience that change in the moment, it usually leads to a fairly profound desire after that. Oh, I want to become this now. But then they make a big mistake. And the biggest mistake they make is they'll go home to their partner, and who has no context of the experience they've been through. And they've just went, oh, I've been quiet with my voice my entire life. And they'll go home, they're like, new me, new year, new me, honey. And then their partner goes, oh, why are you doing that with your voice? Oh, you learned that from Vin? That's gross. Why are you doing that? It's so fake. It's so inauthentic. And then they revert back to who they have always been their entire life.
And that's exactly what I see all the time. Yep. Some people, they'll be super excited for like a new project I got coming out now, or they'll be super excited for like these live streams coming out, stuff like that. And they'll be like all gun ho and like excited. But then once they see like how much of a change they have to make in order to be a part, to participate, and how consistently high the standards are as far as what we're doing here and what we're trying to grow, most people give it like 2-3 days and they're back to themselves. They're just doing regular, lazy shit all the time, every time, right? So I've had people who would like join bands and stuff like that, and they'd be like, "Yo, yeah, I'm trying to put in work," and something as simple as just weekly practice they can't commit to. Something as simple as being on time they can't commit to. And then, but in terms of networking, as far as just being of value, they can't commit to. Like, yes, you play your instrument. Yes, you can show up to practice, but then when you get there, you can't read. You're not trying to read. You're not making improvements. You're not working on things. You're not taking risks. And so this bleeds into everybody's lives. But like you said, yeah, you can go home to your spouse. And again, spouses are another part of being an artist, but they're not in the same mindset. They're not in the same context. A lot of them aren't on the same page. They are completely separate from everything you're doing. So the idea and expectations you may have upon them are probably non-existent in their mind. And so when you're asking them to rise up to a certain occasion, there is a certain standard you're going to have to meet. Just like the gentleman in the previous clip where he was talking about MDRCs, most spouses aren't going to understand that. And most spouses aren't going to be ready to fight something like that, let alone withstand what comes with the problems with that. So then when you consider that, why and what are we really talking about when we are adding them to the conversation, right? And so, again, when we're talking about networks, should they be a part of your network? Are they valuable enough to be a part of your network? Or should they just be family and over there to the side, right? And so when we have this conversation, like I said, this is super, super dope as far as like speaking and stuff like that. But now when we're applying it to musicianship, it does have a lot of layers that come with nuances as far as how we interact with fans, investors, and artists in general. Because one artist, they may think they're on the quote unquote levels that we were talking about in the first clip, where they can tell you, hey, I'm good enough to be working for you, but they also don't have the showmanship to be on the next level. So which one of the artists should you really be targeting, right? The person who's really technically proficient to justify what they're saying, or the person who's technically proficient and also has the showmanship to be at a higher level, quote unquote, right?
What areas of one's life have you seen in those examples change when someone learnt communication skills? Because we often, the examples we've given so far are just like work.
Yeah. With their children. This has been the coolest part because I'm a dad. I teach a concept called vocal foundations, which we can dive into later. And there's these beautiful 5 core vocal foundations that people can learn. And I love it when parents go through it because I always see these comments where they said, oh my goodness, just read to the kids. They've never reacted to me in that way before. The one night I go home and I read to my kids and I do it in a boring way, they go, Dad, don't read it like that. Do it the fun way. And what they're asking for is they're asking for that vocal variety. They're asking for that inner child, for that playfulness. And I think that's one of the greatest I think that's one of my greatest superpowers, is the ability to be playful.
And a lot of people don't even like being playful. And especially, you know, when kids are asking for it, you know, some people will give in and be like, oh, yeah, for the babies or whatever, right? But the point here is that he's being playful for a reason, right? And so when you get on stage and things like that, like I said, you can be a really, really good singer, but if you're just staring off into the side, trying to basically focus on your toning and making sure you're clear and stuff like that, it's not a show anymore. We're just watching you practice in a way. And so children are a good metric as far as what is exciting, because they have just raw reactions to things. They don't know how to just be a little angry or a little happy, right? And so that's a good indication of how you can practice these things, especially if you're a parent who's like very short with your child, like very like matter of fact. Try being playful with your kid like for a week straight. Like don't do just a day. Like give yourself a week to like 3 months of doing it and see how the relationship changes, right? And that can be applied to the same relationships you have when it comes to your network, right? Sometimes the networks don't really correlate to what benefits they bring. So how you talk to them is going to change, right? So let's say you have a producer who's really late all the time, really late, but they always bring you a hit. You may be graceful in that they're late, but in terms of how you speak with them, it's probably going to be very short, because there's really no point in trying to pressure them and being on time because you know they're late, right? But that's a matter of fact thing that I was talking about, where you're going to have to accurately try to judge yourself and your network and who you are and what value you bring. All right, so let us move on to the last clip of the morning, and then we will get you guys off to lunch like we're supposed to.
So here we are, a hotel lobby. It's a great place to people watch. Here we have 3 women, and we notice, you know, how often they either touch each other or signal to each other. And this just tells us they've known each other for a while. Now, one of the ways that we can tell when people are standing and talking is how relaxed they are. And we notice that the woman just crossed her leg, one in front of the other. And this is a high comfort display. We only do that when we're comfortable around other people.
So how many of you people watch? Some people don't even know what people watching is, but people watching is just the little tiny little tidbits of information you get from body language that we all can just read, right? It'd be like if I just started flashing sheet music in front of you guys, right? Some of you would know what's on the paper, and that's what people reading is. So like as people are talking in public and just walking around, our bodies are signaling something, right? Whether it's we're afraid, whether we're comfortable, whether we're going to work and we're late, or whether we're hungry and we're looking for, you know, a quick bite to eat. Our bodies are signaling things, right? And so there's experts that know how to read these things based on the pattern recognition. Like we just generally socially and culturally have like similar patterns, right? Dads act a certain way, moms act a certain way, really, really angry people act a certain way and stuff like that, right? And so what he's doing is he's showing how he's basically observing people. The reason this is important to us is because you may find yourself in a situation where you're on stage, or maybe you're in a big meeting, or you're in a ballroom, or maybe you're having a record label meeting or something like that. You're in a convention or something like that, or a conference at a hotel, and you're networking and stuff like that. You want to be able to understand how people are communicating with their bodies, right? And in the sense of like, one, who knows one another. Like you may be like, okay, this is a couple, maybe this person, they're more of associates and stuff like that. Or maybe these guys are business partners and I can tell that these guys just kind of met, or maybe these guys have known each other forever and they just seen each other for a while, or haven't seen each other for a while. You can find these signals, right? But now as a musician, you can use what we just learned in the last clip almost as a tool to walk into conversations or even exit them, right? So now you can see, for example, this table here, let's say you found, I don't know, any reason to talk to the lady on the left, right? You're like, oh, that's so-and-so, and she has a business doing, I don't know, she's in real estate, and you want to introduce yourself. Clearly, she's engaged in a conversation right now. And we can tell that because she's leaned into the conversation, she's actively trying to listen. Like these little signals and things like that, we can pick up if we pay attention to them. So I'm gonna let the expert explain it before I try to give like my old habits and stuff like that.
We know that this family gets along really well. We know this just from the amount of tactile activity we're observing, that there's a lot of touching between the father and the son. and this is always a good indicator of a positive relationship. And so we see the young lady fixing the other girl's hair, and we think of it as this is merely for aesthetic purposes. That's only part of it. By grooming other people, it stimulates the hair follicles and it sends signals to the brain that add to psychological comfort.
How many of you knew that? And a lot of people, they would say they know that, but how many of you knew that in terms of your network, right? How many of you would sit there as, like, let's say a hostess at a strip club or something like that, and maybe massage the client's shoulders or something like that? How many of you have seen that? How many of you have seen, let's say, a secretary come in and massage the head of her, executive and stuff like that? Now, a lot of you would find that inappropriate romantically, but culturally, that's one thing. Scientifically, he just explained the benefits of it. So would you do that in terms of your network as far as getting some kind of value to you, right? And so these are things that a lot of people, like I said, they have trouble with, because this would be something like, let's say your CEO literally physically is stressing and would need head scratches or something like that. It's inappropriate for most people, right? But if you're their spouse, then you have more value in that situation to be able to do that. But again, you have to be intentional about A, wanting to do it, and then B, it being for their benefit. It has nothing to do with you, right? And that's going to make it really hard for people to say, I want to make sure I do this for you because it benefits you. That makes you super valuable in a network. But again, you'd have to now move beyond, well, I don't feel like it, I don't want to do it, what have you done for me lately kind of attitude. You got to move away from that.
Instinctively, we can usually tell if people are comfortable with each other. But the fact is that many of us will sometimes try to disguise the emotion we are experiencing. We do it when we're trying to be polite, or we could be trying to deceive someone. Detecting deception is where an investigator's expertise comes in handy.
There is no Pinocchio effect. There's not one single behavior indicative of deception. The paradigm that I like to use is comfort and discomfort, that humans are very binary. We are either crying as a baby or we're quite satisfied. People are either very comfortable or they're struggling with something. If you're not an expert on body language, it's a good place to at least begin. You will see everything from lip biting, squinting, lip compression, furrowing of the forehead, displacement of the jaw. They might go, We might do a cleansing behavior where we wipe our hands on our legs. If we're really stressed, you often see people pull their socks up, and they're literally ventilating their skin down by the feet. They may actually dimple their cheeks. They put pressure on themselves. Or they may wring their hands. They literally wring their hands. The person may run his fingers through his hair, or women do it back here. Even a light touching of the neck is suggestive that something's wrong. We humans do that a lot. There may be covering of the suprasternal notch. We go, oh my God, that happened? So we look at all these behaviors and say, okay, I asked a question and this is their reaction. Now the question is, why? Why are they behaving like this?
Discomfort can also trigger our face muscles to move in ways that are difficult to spot and even harder to control. They're not.
And this is a very interesting way to kind of like be able to navigate your fans as well. So like if you're trying to test a new record or something like that, a lot of people, y'all look for head nods and stuff like that, but people lie through head nods all the time, right? What you really want to see is like how people are going to have like a visceral reaction, like the first like 45 seconds of a song, because after that point, they are kind of like analyzing things, and it's getting to a point to where they're probably over analyzing. But yeah, this is all information you're definitely going to have to master and understand if you want to be successful, aka a superstar in the music industry. Now, you can also delegate it to your record label to try to figure it out for you, but you would be way more valuable to somebody like me and everybody else if you knew this yourself and was trying to get, you know, way more skills out of this kind of thing. But yeah, body language is a very interesting way to try to read the room. And like I said, the rest of the week is going to be all about topics like this. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up this time for you guys. And we're right on schedule too. So I will see you guys tomorrow morning for the next episode. This was Musician Talks with DameSmiff, and I'm out, y'all. Peace.